Okay. Is Chief Callahan with you?
No, he's going to his office. He's not in yet.
Okay, so he'll make his presence known when he gets on.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to call the Traffic Commission hearing of September 10th to order. Members present, Frank Stringy, City Planner, Chief of the Fire Department, Chris Bright, City Planner, Frank Stringy, City Engineer, Nick Rystrom, I may have already said that, myself, Paul Agenzio. And the first order of business, this is going to be a public hearing. The first thing on here is a proposed bus-only lane on Broadway from Revere Street to Chelsea on the southbound side. It's a pilot program which will operate during the hours of 4 a.m. and 9 a.m. The pilot program will be from September 30th to December 31st. There will be no parking on the west side of Broadway between 4 and 9. And I believe that's all the pertinent information. There will be fines associated with parking. The fines are still up in the air as far as to how much that fine will be. And I'd like to open it up for discussion now. Anybody in favor of this proposal? If you'd like to speak, I know Julie DeMauro has some information. And we have Eric Burkham here from the MBTA, which will also give us some information. And then we can open it up to any residents or business owners along Broadway who would like to comment.
So Ashley, if you could just allow me to share my screen. I was able to get an actual aerial view of the proposed pilot on Broadway where the markings would go. So I'd like to be able to show that to everyone. Just see if I can do this right. And I think by now we would all be, okay, here we go. So this is, can everybody see that now?
Not yet.
Yes. Okay. So basically this bus only lane pilot was out of response to COVID. We were approached by the MBTA. They had some funding to accelerate bus travel during the busiest corridors or bus lines that they have in the state. So they asked if Broadway would be something that we would want to consider for Broadway. And so we talked about it and we said yes, with the understanding that this would be a pilot. So basically what we would be doing is we'd be taking away parking in the early morning hours from 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. from Revere Street all the way to the Revere Chelsea line on Broadway. And what we would be doing where the parking meters are, we would actually, the meters don't go on until 9 a.m. in the morning anyway. But we would not allow any type of overnight parking on the southbound side of Broadway to accommodate the bus to run down the corridor and pick up passengers. So a lot of people are probably saying, well, why do we need this? There's not a lot of people on the bus. But to be honest with you, during COVID, before COVID, they would pack about 60 people on a bus. And for the 116 and the 117 bus lines that run through here, this is the third heaviest utilized bus route in the Metro Boston area. So right now with COVID, you can only allow 40 people on the bus. And if you've noticed, the people have to get on the back of the bus and then it kind of fills up gradually. And so this rapid response bus only lane is in response to keeping drivers and passengers safe on the buses as they travel through the corridor. So I'm just going to scroll through the different slides. So as you can see, starting from the first one, you can see that it's going to head right into the Chelsea line. It's going to go up into Cabot Street, Chelsea. And then when it will end there only because Chelsea is actually embarking on a large Chapter 90 project where they're going to be actually ripping up that portion of Broadway. But they are committed to extending this once that work is done. So as you can see, this is the Chelsea portion and the end of the Revere or Broadway portion of the plan. Then we have Page Street and Revere Beach Parkway. And you can see in between the two, for example, the crosswalk at Page, you can see right before the intersection, we have some red marking, and then we have it again a little bit further down. So this is section 3, and then we're going to move on to the Fenno Street area, and we're going to move on to the Prospect Ave, Reservoir Ave area. I mean, as you can see, the bus lane is going to run straight through. And then finally, we're coming up to the area of City Hall. And as you can see, it's marked. It says bus lane 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning. And then we're moving on to the area of Park Avenue in the firehouse. Because this area in front of the firehouse, from pretty much from Walgreens onward to Park Ave is so congested and there's so much turning, the bus lane will not run through there. As you can see, they would have to, merge to the 110 would take the right-hand turn onto Park Ave, but all of the other buses would actually have to merge back into, would have to keep merge in and out, because if they're not taking the right, they would have to stay straight. So we've decided there would be no lane there at that time. And we're going a little bit further on. As you can see, it extends further down Broadway, through Fernwood Ave, through Mountain Ave, Proctor Ave, Cushman Ave, and then really this is the start of it, which is the Kula Street, Cushman Ave area, and then onward to Revere Street and Malvern Street. So we've had many meetings about this, planning meetings in regards to this, and we've done a little research in terms of parking and utilization of parking on Broadway during this time. So what we do know is that Broadway has about 73 metered spots along the whole corridor. And in the early morning hours, only 21 of those spots are taken on both the north and southbound side of the corridor. So there would be a little displacement of parking for some residents and some businesses, but they would also be allowed to park on the northbound side. Their parking is somewhat disrupted anyway in the mornings on this side of the street, on the southbound side, on Mondays and Wednesdays for street cleaning or street sweeping. But there's plenty of extra inventory parking, like I said, on the northbound side, as well on the streets that, on Malden Street, Ambrose Street, Chapley Ave. We also have other parking areas such as the Hill School, the Municipal Lot, Yeaman Street. So these are all different areas that people could park in place of it. We also looked at, there was some concern about loading zones on Broadway. And what we found is that there are no loading zones on Broadway. There's no permitted loading zones on Broadway. The ordinance reads that if a business gets a delivery, that the delivery truck only has 15 minutes to actually unload and then go on their way. Some of the businesses that I did have a chance to speak with, and I did go into all of the businesses, we talked a little bit about deliveries, and because, their delivery schedule isn't set, and, the bus could be a few minutes late, it could be a few minutes behind, a lot of minutes early, hopefully it'll be more earlier than it is late. We have kind of talked internally about allowing the buses to go around the delivery trucks, because there's just really no way of kind of nailing that piece of this project down. And where this is just a pilot, we're, like I said, Paul had said, we're only doing this for 3 months. We're going to see how it goes. And then after the 3 months, if it doesn't work, then we can at least say that we tried it. But I think it's a good time for us to try something like this for a couple of reasons. One, the buses will begin to get full again. The 116 and the 117 that run this corridor, they are already at their, I think, 65% capacity level of their, that was happening pre-COVID. So those ridership numbers are coming back up. The other piece of this is too, as many of you know on this call, that we're actually in our final stages of a new Broadway signalization project. And so we're getting all new traffic lights on Broadway, which are going to talk to each other. The lights are going to actually count cars. There's going to be a preemptive response control out of the firehouse, but it's, the lights are going to be working more in a coordinated fashion throughout the whole corridor. And also too, if this were to become a permanent fixture on the street and a permanent program, the lights would also talk to the buses coming down the corridor as well. So if anybody, that's my proposal of why we should do this, but I'm going to turn it over to some other people.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this bus lane?
I'll just add a couple other details. My name is Eric Berkman. I'm the Director of Transit Priority for MBTA. Julie asked me to be here to answer any questions as well. I think a couple other items to mention about this is that school buses can use the bus lane, and so can emergency vehicles. So when school buses are transporting pupils, they can also get the reliability benefit and the travel time benefit that might mean you're able to reduce the amount of school busing you need because they're not sitting in traffic. Or at the very least, it means that students can have a better chance of getting to school on time using the school bus. And then for emergency vehicle response, this can quicken your response times where the roadway is pretty congested, especially having the firehouse right there on Broadway. This could be a benefit depending on where the emergency vehicles are going. And then we've done these peak only bus lanes in other parts of Metro Boston. You may have seen in Everett or in Rossendale. And they work out pretty well where, when the bus lane's not in operation, people can still park there. I think this one is pretty good because, like Julie mentioned, the vast majority of the businesses on the corridor don't open until after 9 anyway. And the parking study that we did, that our consultants did, sort of supported that in terms of parking demand. So outside the hours, it's a parking lane and then a bike lane. And we've found in the other projects where we've done this that it often results in better traffic flow because cars aren't waiting for buses to pull in and out of bus stops. They're not waiting for bikes to kind of pull to the side or continue down the lane. It really helps during the most congested times. We found that it really does help the traffic flow by separating out those uses. So from 4 to 9 a.m., the ridership in this facility specifically is about 800 people each weekday, which is a pretty decent ridership. And this is a key bus route. And the indirect benefits to the bus riders extend to about 2,700 people between 4 a.m. and 9 a.m. because the reliability improvements we see here kind of filter down into all the rest of the route through Chelsea and East Boston. So I think this could be a really meaningful project, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Berkman. Do any Traffic Commission members have any questions for Mr. Berkman or Julie or anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
My name is Jay Monty. I'm the transportation planner for the city of Everett. Everybody hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Julie asked me to come today and just tell you a little bit about our experience. We implemented something very, very similar here in Everett back in end of 2016. We were the first community to try this in the Boston area. We were understandably nervous to do it. There were really no rules of how to do it at the time. And unequivocally, it has been a success. A lot of the concerns that I think typically would come up with a project like this were concerns here, business access, parking. But as Julie said, we had very similar conditions. We had underutilized parking in the morning, businesses that primarily didn't open until after 9 a.m. And we had very high ridership on the corridor. We have found we've had very few complaints about our project. We've been running it now for 3 solid years, all seasons of the year. It's been a huge benefit for transit riders, cyclists. A lot of our most positive comments we got were from drivers. As Eric said, traffic flow was improved as a result. So I'm happy to answer any questions just from our experience as you guys deliberate. But I would just say this is, I think, really a home run. It's been a home run for us. I imagine it will be for you. So hopefully you guys will move forward with this. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any other people present that would like to speak in favor of the bus lane?
Paul, this is Frank Stringy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just have a question for Eric Berkman. Revere historically, obviously, is a transit community. We have 3 T stations and many bus routes. What do you see as far as numbers on Broadway, increase of ridership over the past 3 years? If you have those numbers, or if it's a general feeling of increased ridership that you're realizing?
Yeah, so 116, 117, I often the 111 route in Chelsea that goes down to Haymarket gets a lot of attention, but in fact, 116, 117 is a key bus route and it goes up on the map as such when it's combined. And the reason I mention that is that if you combine the ridership as we do for the map, 116, 117 is actually the 3rd highest ridership route in the entire MBTA system, like Julie said. And that's been that way for the past several years. We do tend to see, Revere, Chelsea, East Boston, we see more essential workers using transit, using the bus, using the Blue Line, and that's reflected in our COVID-related ridership. So since the pandemic, the bus system overall, which became the largest mode, carrying more riders than the rail system, has seen it sees about 40% of its ridership on average across the whole bus system. But the 116, 117 actually sees 65% of its ridership. So the ridership on 116, 117 is actually much more durable during the pandemic. And we think it's probably because there's so many essential workers in Revere, Chelsea, and East Boston. So I see, Chelsea is addressing some of this as well with projects in Chelsea. You've maybe seen the Broadway bus lane in Chelsea in the news. The planning process they have in Plan East Boston is looking at bus lanes on Meridian Street, which has gone through a couple of public meetings in terms of like broader approaches for the Plan East Boston process. So I think the ridership on 116, 117 remains high and it's continued to be high. And it's the way that people get, as you know, to and from the Blue Line in order to get into downtown. So the ridership really on 116, 117 hasn't dropped. It's remained durable, or it hasn't dropped over the past several years. And in the pandemic, it has remained higher ridership than the rest of the routes in the system. So I think this is a pretty sound investment for, in terms of bus routes, this is absolutely one of the highest ridership bus routes since the pandemic. And even outside the pandemic, it was a high ridership route. So I can send you all the ridership data that I have for the past several years if you're interested in it. But, like I said, just from 4 a.m. to 9 a.m., directly or indirectly, this facility would positively impact about 2,700 passengers just between 4 a.m. and 9 a.m., which is a pretty significant chunk.
Thank you for that additional information, Eric. We're certainly seeing the same thing along Broadway.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further comments? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Paul, I think Jamie Russo is just raised his hand.
And computer difficulties. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello all. Hello everyone. Jamie Russo, 311 Broadway. When Julie had first pitched this to me, I thought it was a great idea because I was somewhat familiar with it in Everett because we manage buildings in Everett as well. And I think it's a great idea. As many of you know me, that you know that I am a huge fan of public transportation. I think the value of it, especially in the projects that we do, where sometimes we're a little short on parking. Obviously public transportation is great. It's great for our residents as well. The only concern that I would have would be some of the earlier businesses I would say between Park Ave and maybe Fenno Street. whether or not that we would be able to utilize some municipal parking, be it the McKinley School or City Hall, not to interfere with City Hall, because I know they open prior to 9. But on the overall pilot program, as I said to Julie in the past, I think it's a great idea. And as someone that works sort of in the City Hall Square area, I'm a huge fan of it. So I would be a proponent, please.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Russo. Any other people wishing to speak in favor of this proposal? Okay. Hearing and seeing none. Anyone wish to speak in opposition to this bus lane? Anyone in opposition? Ashley, does anyone have their hand raised or anything? Apparently not. Okay, any commission members wishing to speak?
Yeah,
Paul, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, this is Chief Bright. I think it's a good time to initiate this pilot, and it was well thought out. I know Mr. Mall did a lot of work on this, and if it doesn't work out, we can always revert back to the former old way, right?
That's right.
correct?
I mean, I think the main part of this is it's a pilot program. We try it for 3 months. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we can back out of it. And Julie and Eric, just to make one thing clear, all the lane markings and signage, that's all at the cost of the MBTA. This really doesn't cost the city financially anything to get this going. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. And Eric and I have gone back and forth about, because normally in more permanent projects or, people, to pilot some programs where they just say, we're just going to put this down and everybody's going to have to learn with it. They put down a high friction surface red paint or green paint. Eric and I, talked about that, and we said that we would just want regular red paint down. So it would wash away by the springtime if it doesn't work out. I also want to just let people know that if it does work out and we decide that we want to extend this, we are going to be taking into account everybody's comments and suggestions, but everybody will be notified again, because this isn't something that is just going to automatically roll into an extension. We're going to learn from our mistakes, and hopefully there won't be that many. But we're always looking to improve things, and so I think that that's the other thing. At the end of the 3 months, we'll be coming back to everybody and saying, okay, what do we improve upon to make this a more permanent program along Broadway? But so, we are going to be watching this carefully, but we do feel that, the combination of this dedicated bus lane along with the improvements in the traffic lights is really going to be a win for everybody who travels down Broadway. Especially, right now too, the kids aren't back at school, but that could change. And I think we all need to be mindful too of the fact that there are going to be a lot more kids being driven to school once school opened up, because we also have an issue with our own school buses not being able to carry as many kids as they once did. So, we need to be a little bit more creative and thoughtful about how we move traffic through the corridor. I know some businesses will be impacted, but plenty of extra inventory parking on the side streets to accommodate that.
Okay. Thank you, Julie.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Rystrom.
This is Nick Rystrom, City Engineer. This is a question for the gentleman at the MBTA and also the gentleman from Everett. I'm wondering if you have experienced any, negative impacts from the bus lane, as it, now will be traveling essentially right next to the sidewalk. Has there been any instances of problems with pedestrians or bicyclists or other cars, trying to occupy that space, or even just stepping off the sidewalk without realizing that there is a bus lane there or anything like that?
I'm happy to answer that. Jay Monty here from Everett. So, certainly it's an adjustment. I think that folks, it will take some time to get used to the fact that, for a pedestrian or motorist to expect the bus there. I think in the very early weeks, we never had any accidents. Nobody was ever hit, anything like that. But, we did get a couple of calls saying, hey, I was trying to make a right turn and, wasn't expecting the bus to be there, sort of thing. But the reality too is that, I think this is probably the case in Revere. In Everett, traffic was pretty standstill on Broadway most mornings, and you're not going to run a bus at 30 miles an hour between a curb and standstill traffic. The bus is probably going to run at 10 or 15 miles an hour. At that speed, there's pretty good reaction time for anybody that does try to cut the bus off, or a pedestrian that crosses the street. And I think that's why we haven't seen any issues. These aren't high speed lanes by any means, so the speeds are slow enough that really avoids most of those issues. For the cycling community, this was a big benefit, and at the time, nobody had done a shared space of buses and bikes together. It was a bit controversial, but it has turned out to actually be pretty successful, again because the speeds are low, that the speeds of the buses and the bikes fairly well match each other, that there aren't a lot of conflicts. So what we, going from having just a single bike lane next to cars, which is not always a very comfortable situation for cyclists, this actually turned out to be a much more comfortable situation for cyclists because I have the full lane to use now. So, certainly an adjustment. I think you'll probably, you'll get a few calls of people who are, just it's different. It's something to get used to. But I would not go as far to say that it's unsafe. I think we've not had any incidents here to say that it's anything but safe.
And I'll add one other, thanks Jay, I'll add one other thing that we often talk about when we're frequently asked about pedestrians and bus lanes, whether it's a peak only lane or whether it's a all day lane. And one other thing is that the vehicles that are supposed to be occupying the bus lane, they're professionally trained bus operators who, who are looking out for pedestrians all day, because that's the whole purpose of the bus, to drive by pedestrians and pick them up. And then there's also, buses are less frequent in the lane than a general purpose traffic. So it often it improves the pedestrian condition because there's not just a constant zipping of cars through that lane. Now here it's parking that is being replaced during the peak period. But even so, if you remove a parked car from there, you actually get a pedestrian daylighting condition where any general purpose traffic that's going down in the general purpose lane can see the pedestrians crossing better because they're not blocked by the view of a parked car during peak. So like Jay said, we found that it improved the conditions for cyclists, and it also improved the conditions for pedestrians.
Thank you. Any further comments from the commission members?
Mr. Chairman, this is Frank Stringy once again. I know Julie did a tremendous job with outreach. She talked to many businesses, educating them, answering their questions. My initial concern was with respect to early morning deliveries for businesses and loading. But now I've been told that the buses will work around that early morning deliveries, and they will not be impacted and not be prohibited from continuing those deliveries early morning. Is that correct, Julie?
Yeah, I mean, yes, and that is correct, because when I talked to the businesses, there was no way for them to give me an accurate time of when they got deliveries or the day of the week that they got deliveries. Frank and I, just looking out our office windows, we know the liquor store across the street gets deliveries at a certain time every morning, but we have yet to see either a 117 or 116 or 119 bus drive by them during the time that they're getting the delivery. So to kind of time that is really, it's so up in the air. And usually, these delivery drivers, this is probably the first stop on their route for the day. So they're unloading and they're going. So I think that I don't really think it's going to be that much of a conflict. And I think there's ways to work around it. But yeah, so I think at this point right now, they will be going around the delivery truck.
Okay, thank you. And just for the record, hold on. Mary Gandolfo from 619 Washington Avenue couldn't attend the meeting today, but she wanted to go on record as opposing the bus lane. She feels as though it would create unsafe conditions for vehicles, children, seniors, and the disabled. And she wanted to make it known to us that she is vehemently opposed to the bus lane. And that's for the record. That's Mary Gondolfolo, 619 Washington Avenue. Thank you. Any further comment from anyone? Do I hear a motion from one of the members to approve this?
Mr. Chairman, Frank Stringy, City Planner, I would like to make a motion that we pass this pilot program bus lane starting September 30th through December 31st. I know we have to talk about fines for cars parked in the lane during those hours. I think we want to hold, we could probably do that separately, but I would recommend that we add a $25 fine for vehicles that are parked in the lane to the motion, if the other members agree.
Seconded.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. Do I have a second to this motion?
I
Seconded.
second that, Mr. Argenzio.
Yes, Chief Callahan.
And I apologize for being late. I was tied up in another matter, but I second that with the $25 fine. That's reasonable.
Okay. All right, great. So all in favor, all opposed? We have approved this, and fingers crossed, everything goes well, and look forward to seeing it. And I think Julie is still, your screen's still up here.
Okay, I'm gonna take this down.
Okay.
I didn't know if anybody had any questions, but thank you, everyone. And as this rolls out, I want to make a couple of quick points. I know Paul told me to be brief in this meeting, so, but a couple of things I do want to say is that, you know, before this rolls out, we are going to be back out on the street. We're going to be letting everybody know within 2 weeks' time that this is going to be rolling out, and we're going to be you know, giving, you know, warning notices. We're going to be working with James Rose in the parking department, where they can actually leave warning tickets on vehicles parked along Broadway during this time. And then with the start dates, that this warning ticket will actually turn into a real fine. So I don't, this is not in any way trying to make people's lives harder. That's not what this is all about. And, you know, we're committed to getting the outreach out there.
Thank you very much for all your work on this.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I also want to thank Julie. She's always a pleasure to work with from the MBTA side. So
thank you, Eric. It's always great to work with you guys too.
Thanks again. I'm going to go unless you need me for anything else.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving on to the second item on the public hearing, amend Schedule 8 of Title 10 by removing the following. Shirley Ave, Southerly, 65 Shirley Avenue, 3 parking spaces, 30-minute zones. And Shirley Avenue Northerly, 60 to 66 Shirley Ave, 3 parking spaces, 30-minute zones. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of removing these 30-minute zones? I believe this was a request from Ira.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So if you're removing the 30-minute zone, does it become an all-day
Yes,
zone?
I believe there was a business there, or a couple of businesses that had requested this. Those businesses are now moved on, or they're no longer there. So he wanted to put these spaces back for full utilization.
Okay, so it becomes just regular parking.
Yes, consistent
Thank
with
you.
the rest of Shirley Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Chief Bright.
Second?
Motion to approve, Dave
Okay.
Callahan.
Thank you. All in favor, all opposed? Okay, moving on to number 3, amend Schedule 11 of Title 10, handicapped person parking areas by adding 839 Winthrop Ave and 58 Shawmut. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of either of these locations?
Mr. Agenzio,
Yes, Mr. DeChico.
58 Shawmut Street is a formality. We did an installation on that from last month's, well, actually, not last month's, July's meeting. We had done the installation. It was an emergency to put up there, and we just put it on as a public hearing for formality for this month.
Okay,
So that one is has already been installed.
okay. And 839 Winthrop, anyone wishing to speak in favor?
I would like to speak on that, Mr. Chairman. Ward 1
Councilor
Councilor Mckenna. I requested this, and I'm really glad to see it's approved, if it is approved. I know the woman and her husband and her are elderly, and they really have a very difficult time getting in and out of their cars. They live across the street from me, and they do have a driveway, but the people that own the house use the driveway, so they have to use the street, and parking's terrible on Winthrop Ave. So this is a good thing for them.
Thank you, Councilor McKenna. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Chief Callahan, I speak in favor of that.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone opposed to this?
Mr. Agenzio?
Yes, Mr. Chico.
Just by our ordinances, and I can screen share our my computer. They do not meet our ordinances. Number one, for a handicap sign, they have to be the homeowner. Number two, they have a 5 to 6 car driveway at the location. I can screenshot my screen and show you the photos of the location. But due to our ordinances, they do not meet the requirement for a handicap sign.
So our ordinances, if there's a tenant, there was no provision.
There's no provision, and there's off-street parking allowed at that location.
Mm-hmm. And you say they have a 6 to 7 car
Yeah, I
driveway?
can, if you want, I can screenshot my screen, and I have aerial photos of the location.
Okay, Councilor McKenna, do you?
No, I do agree, but I think they do own the house. I just think that they gave the it's in a trust, so they put it in a trust for their grandkids, and their grandkids live there and park there. So, and it's very difficult for her to get out of the car and go around the driveway, go around the fence to go into their entranceway. So, okay. I mean, both of them are handicapped, and both of them have difficulties getting out of the car. So if they were even in their driveway, it would be very difficult for them to come up. It's got to incline the driveway. So to come up the incline, I don't think it's a 6-car driveway. I mean, I live right across the street. You probably could get, if you could do it, maybe 4 cars. But you know, like I said, he issues that, and but I'm just not in favor. I think they should have a handicap sign in front of their house, because parking on Winthrop Ave is atrocious. So that's it.
Thank you,
but
Councilor.
I'll go with anything he says.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Chief Callahan.
Mr. Agenzio, is there a way we can accommodate these people and just override?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, we can do as we like.
Do you want to see the photos?
Well, if these people are having difficulty and they're elderly, and I understand the situation.
What it is as you heard, their grandchildren are parking in the driveways. If you see the aerial photos, if you let me just give me due diligence and let me show you the photos of what's being parked in the driveways.
Absolutely.
Okay.
If you would like to show the photos.
Sure.
Did I hear correctly that the grandchildren don't let the grandparents park in the driveway?
No, that's not true. That's not true.
That's what you stated.
That's right. I caught that too.
Okay.
So right, strong.
I have a couple of different photos. This is just one. I'm going to give you the aerial.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second. This one doesn't do it. 1 second. folder, so I know not to open up the same one.
Okay.
All the white there is the driveway, but I'm gonna try and find you an actual photo from the GIS map.
Okay, all I see is your,
I have to switch the screen, that's right.
right. I just see your files.
Let me close that.
Right?
Is anything coming through right now?
Just your files, your folders. We don't see any pictures or diagrams.
Stop that share and do a new share.
Okay.
Still the files?
No, that's disappeared now.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Oh,
could I
there we go.
suggest, could I ask a couple of things? These folks, they have their medical paperwork, correct? And they've turned in documents and stuff?
They have Chief Callahan, but I have an ordinance that I have to follow. And
Okay.
what happens is we've denied numerous people, and there is not an incline there. I actually, because it looks like it from the photo, I drove by the location.
Okay.
And as you can see, 2 cars fit side by side, and it can go 4 cars back. If anybody wants to pull it up, for some reason, I have aerial photos. It's a very, very large driveway.
Could I just say something to you, Ralph? Excuse me. There is an incline. I live right across the
I can
street.
see it.
I live at 830 Winthrop Ave. She's at 839. So I see this every single day. So there is an incline. It might not be a big incline, but there is an incline. It's not a flat driveway.
Right, I'm just going by with the ordinance. It's ADA accessible. It's not enough of a. I'm just stating what I go by.
How about this? How about we give them a 60-day trial period and see how that goes?
I can just tell you what we're saying. I'm just going to tell you we're going to get a lot of complaints.
Okay.
Because you feel, because Mr. DeCicco, you feel as though we've denied other people on this basis.
Yes.
And okay. Okay. All right.
I mean, listen, it looks like it's a little difficult with a little bit of a slope. I'd have to personally go there and look at it. But even if we give them a 60-day trial and see how it works,
okay.
Would people be in agreement with that?
I would, definitely.
I'd have to agree with Mr. DeCicco. We just have to be consistent in how we're applying these rules. So we just can't cherry pick. Okay, we're going to say, you know, this person has a big driveway. It has a slight slope, maybe, not much that I can see from this photo. Certainly at the beginning of the driveway off of the curb doesn't look like too much of a slope there, that spot. Maybe as you get further down the rear of the house, it slopes a little bit more.
In the backyard, it does.
But I've seen us deny, like I have to agree with Ralph. We've denied, you know, month after month, people who trying to, they want to get the sign out in front of their house and preserve the parking in the driveway also. And we've said no. I think without fail every single time. So for that reason, I'd be opposed to it.
Okay. Mr. Stringy, Mr. Rystrom, how do you feel?
So this is Nick Rystrom. I would tend to agree with Chief Bright and also with Mr. DeCicco. We have in the past denied such similar situations. And I would say that in this instance, it seems like it would fall into that same category. It doesn't look to me like the slope is very significant. I mean, just in that picture, you can see the change. There's a basement window. You can see a very slight change in grade going back. And if you look at the aerial, I think that they can fit reasonably 4 cars there. And so, you know, for that reason, I would tend to agree with Chief Bright and also Mr. DeChico.
Mhm. Okay. Mr. Stringy, do you have any input on this?
No, I know historically we have denied these that have driveways. I know the counselor is looking out for the well-being of her constituents, which she definitely should in this case, and she actually lives across the street, so she knows the situation well. But unfortunately, I think we have to stick to the program, and I believe we would get more complaints if we allowed one driveway access, one person would have driveway access, a handicap sign out in front.
That's all. Yeah, exactly. That's all I'm trying to go by.
There would be problems in the future for the commission.
Okay, do I hear a motion to deny?
Motion to deny, Chief Bright.
Second?
Seconded, Nick Rystrom.
Okay.
My apologies, but I just got to go by what I've been told to go by.
No,
that's
I
fine.
understand. I
No,
understand.
I take no joy in that vote either, for the record.
Okay, yeah, no, we certainly don't want to take any joy in that. Okay, thank you. Ralph, if you can remove your screen.
Yep.
We will move on to number 4. Amend Schedule 9 of Title 10 isolated stop signs by adding Prospect Avenue eastbound at T. Carroll Way and westbound at T. Carroll Way. This was a request from Councilor Keith. Due to the seriousness of the nature, we put them up temporarily. They are up. They seem to be working well. I personally live right around the corner from there. And this is to make it official. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of leaving these signs up at this 3-way stop? Or anyone have any opposition to it?
Would a motion to amend be in order?
Yeah, yes.
Second
Motion-
that.
Motion's
I'll
read.
second that.
Okay, all in favor? It's been passed. Number 5, amend Schedule 8 of Title 10 by removing the following. North Shore Road, eastbound Centennial Avenue, south 60 feet. This would remove the 1-hour parking between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday, 3 spaces. Again, this was from Ira. This concerned a business, I believe, that was at that location and is no longer there. And he would like to go from 1 hour, excuse me, I misspoke. He wants to remove the 1-hour parking between 7 and 5 and add 30-minute parking between 7 and 5. He wants to go from 1 hour down to 30 minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chairman. Frank Stringy.
Second?
Seconded, Chief Bright.
Second, okay. All in favor, all opposed? Thank you. Now we're going on to requests. The first request is from Councilor Mckenna, requesting a public hearing to amend Schedule 8 of Title 10 parking restrictions generally by adding Ocean View Avenue, both sides, the entire length, no parking. Councilor Mckenna?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this was a paper street. It's a utility road. It's the first street off of Revere Beach as you go into, Winthrop. It's the first street there before you go into Revere Beach. And it's the road to go into the townhouses on the point. And it's a very, very narrow street. And what's happening is it's 2-way and people are parking along the fence. So it's getting hard for people to come in and out of there that live in the point. And it's the access road to 5 paper streets. So people that are living like right on the line there where the utility road is, they have parking lots, they can't even get in. So I'm just asking for a no parking sign so people won't park, because since they put the barrels up there, they're getting a lot of people that are parking along this road.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a motion to move this to a public hearing?
Yeah, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Chairman,
Frank
can I
Stringy,
just-
I think this makes perfectly good sense. And
Okay,
I'll
Mr.
move it to public
Riceman,
hearing.
Mr. Riceman wants to make a comment?
So I just would like to make a clarification. I think that Counselor is referencing Ocean Pier Ave, which is the first one.
Yeah,
Not
it could be
Ocean View.
Ocean. It is Ocean
So
Pier. I'm
Ocean
sorry.
View is off of Broad Sound.
Yeah.
Down by Winthrop Parkway. Ocean Pier is the one I think you're speaking about.
Yep, you're right.
Okay.
Yep, that's my mistake.
All right,
I
Frank,
just wanted to clarify.
Mr. Stringy has made a motion to send it to a public hearing. Do I hear a second?
Second, Chief White.
Thank you. All right, we'll move that right along. The second one is Councilor McKenna requests a public hearing to amend Schedule 8 of Title 10, parking restrictions generally. Location Vinyl Street, Southerly, from 17 to 21 to, excuse me, from 17 to 29, no parking.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there is a little piece of sidewalk in between two driveways, between 17 and 29. And what's happening is people are parking there and they're blocking the driveways. They're blocking just a little bit of the driveways, but it's hard for these people to get out. So I'm just asking for a no parking sign just in that little space. It's not big enough for a car, but people are parking there.
Okay, so this isn't a legal parking spot is what you're saying?
No, it isn't.
But people
No,
are
it
still
isn't.
trying to jam their car.
Yes, and we have the 7-Eleven up there, and we have the dental place also. So people are trying to find parking spaces, and they're parking there, and they're blocking some of the driveways. You know, they're hanging over both driveways. So that's why I just want a no parking sign.
Okay. All right, we can move that to a public hearing. If I hear a motion to move to a public hearing.
Motion to move to a public hearing, Chief White.
Thank you.
Do I hear a
Second.
second?
I'll second that.
Okay, move that to a public hearing.
Counselor?
Yes.
Kenna?
Oh, excuse me.
Yes.
Yes, with that, I think it's within a few feet of a driveway. We can still cite them. But you could still post it as well, but that's still something that we could probably, it's a parking violation.
Right.
Yes, yes. And I think people have gotten tickets down there, but I mean, it's just,
Okay,
you know, it's just difficult for the people that live there to swing around and get out of their driveways.
absolutely. No, it's
So
a
that's-
difficult spot over there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whatever we can do to assist them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 3, Councilor McKenna requests a public hearing to amend Schedule 2 of Title 10 prohibited turns by adding Revere Beach Parkway at Victoria Street, no right turn, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Let me just tell you, since I've been a counselor, this has been a big problem. What's happening is people are taking that illegal left turn. We just put signs up there, but the signs were gone. Someone took them down, but they're taking illegal left turns and they're crossing over oncoming traffic, cutting through Vinyl Street and then cutting through Victoria Street to get on Winthrop Ave. They don't want to wait in the traffic. I've tried everything to try to stop this. I've had police there to catch the people that are taking no left turns. I had signs put up, no left turns, no U-turns. People are still doing it. It's at the lights where Railroad Ave is.
Okay,
That's
so
where
this
they're
is,
taking it.
okay, so this is traffic on Revere Beach Parkway heading northbound.
Yes,
Right.
yes, but they're still taking the illegal left turn.
Okay, Sergeant Janino, do we have authority to put signs on state roads?
We have to go to the state Mass Highway for the state roads. I had Mass Highway put the U-turn signs back up last week at the lights. But for no right turn, similar to the issues we had down Point of Pines. A letter
So
from the office to the state.
Okay.
So
we
what's-
have to,
So
excuse me,
what's happening is Victoria Street's getting a lot more cars going down there speeding, and they have a lot of children down there. And I just don't know what to do. I mean, I'll give it to you guys to come up with something, but we have to stop the traffic from cutting through Victoria Street. And Haddon Street's a one way. go in the opposite direction. So that's not a problem. They'd have to get down to Mill Street to get onto Winthrop Ave, but they're cutting through. They're going through the stop sign. I had a stop sign put up there to slow the traffic down. They're still cutting through. They're going really fast. And I'm afraid that, a couple of kids are going to they're riding their bikes down there. They're going to get, hurt. So,
So
that's
Council,
what I'm suggesting that. I don't know if that's the right sign to put there, but we need to stop the traffic from cutting through down there. So.
okay, so that's an illegal turn anyway, without us even putting signs up. Am I correct? Chief?
Well, Victoria Street is the
Yes.
street that I'm concerned about.
All right. Okay, but if they're heading northbound and there's like a light there right at Railroad Avenue, can you legally take a left there?
No,
No,
Oh, okay, so that's already on the books. It's more of an
Right.
enforcement issue, it seems to me.
yes.
Okay.
and I've had police down there and
Okay.
they've enforced it, but what's happening, they're still doing it and they're using Victoria Street as a cut through.
Okay.
So I need to do something with Victoria Street so people are not going to cut through Victoria Street to get down to Winthrop Ave. I
Okay.
have to come up with some sort of solution. And that's the solution that Sergeant Janino and I came up with. I mean, if you want to recommend something, but something needs to be done to stop these cars from using this as a cut through, whether they're coming from Revere Beach or not. If they're coming southerly, they're cutting through. They're going northerly, they're cutting through. They're coming from Mill Street in the opposite direction, they're cutting through. So,
Okay, so I suppose we could certainly put a sign up to reinforce what the regulation is already on the books, coming for the northbound traffic.
we have the signs there. I don't think you understand what I'm trying to say. I need something on the top of Victoria Street coming off of Vinyl Street that says no cut through or no turn during 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock, because that seems to be the time that they have the most volume of traffic.
Okay.
You still don't understand?
No, I understand perfectly.
Oh, okay.
I don't understand what we can do to prevent, if somebody wants to use a street for a cut through and they're following all the regulations and laws, I don't know what we can do as a traffic commission to say, you can't travel on that street because you're using it as a cut through.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Unless Sergeant Janino or Chief Callahan has, some thoughts on that. If people are following the laws and we say, well, you're cutting through, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Is that
Mr. Chairman, Frank Stringy.
Yeah.
The only way to resolve that is, and we've done it in the past, make one way so they can't go down there.
Right.
But that'll be more inconvenience to the residents that live on the street than anything else.
Right. We could certainly do that. I don't think we could,
The
You're
thing
talking
is
reverse-
that, go ahead.
Reverse the one way?
Well, the thing is that Haddon Street is the opposite direction. So you'd have two streets together that would be in the same direction. So you'd have to go all the way down to Mill Street to get around that whole thing.
Right.
I mean, I don't think that's the solution.
No.
I don't know if there's a residential sign that we can put there, residents only. I mean, and, I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's, we have that in Revere. So, I'm looking to you guys for suggestions because we really do need to do something down there. Plus, they have the mental health facility down there also.
Okay. No, I understand what you're saying. I'm just kind of at a loss to figure out a quick fix to this.
Would it help making Vinyl Street a one-way? You cannot come off the Parkway onto Vinyl Street. You make it one way from Broadway all the way out to the Parkway.
Right.
One way halfway down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only halfway now. It continue it
That's
the
what I
whole
mean.
way. That would certainly help.
Run
the
it from
situation.
Broadway to the Parkway,
Right.
in that direction. That'll eliminate anyone speeding off the Parkway trying to cut through.
Right.
That might be a great suggestion. Really, that's a good suggestion.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Counselor, are you looking to, so you're saying that people are coming westbound on Revere Beach Parkway and turning right onto Vinyl and then turning right again onto Victoria to get to Winthrop Ave?
Well, that's one of the problems, but the other problem is that they're coming from Chelsea, and at Railroad Ave, there's a
so there's two different issues there, right? The illegal turn, I think, is an enforcement issue. You know, that's state police or whatnot, right? To make that left turn, it's clearly illegal. There needs to be some sort of enforcement. To turn going west, it seems to me like it's actually more of a difficult to go down the Parkway and then go all the way around Victoria to get to Winthrop than to just go down Winthrop from the set of lights that is at the Parkway and, you know, the top of Harris Street.
Right.
It doesn't seem like it would make sense for that to be a cut through. What are they avoiding? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. But if you're coming westerly and you want to go to Broadway and you, I mean, I guess you can go down Winthrop Ave. Yeah, you're right. But
if you were going to go down Broadway, you would just follow the Revere Beach Parkway all the way to Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like going down Victoria seems like it's more of a hassle than
it's
it
probably
would be to go down Winthrop Ave. And
it's probably the cars that are cutting through. They're still cutting through. And I have had the police down there, and they've been down there a couple of times, and then, you know, the state police, and they've enforced it, and then it's gone. And then, you know, 2 weeks later, the issue continues again. So it stops for a little bit, you know, and then it starts again when there's no enforcement.
But the issue, Counselor, the issue with it's not cars coming down Vinyl Street heading towards the Parkway on the one-way, that end of the street, right? It's cars coming off the Parkway onto that strip of Vinyl and then down Victoria.
Right. Yes.
All right. So if you eliminate the cars coming off the Parkway onto Vinyl on that end of it, that may eliminate that problem. At least doing that on a trial basis, making it one way the entire length towards the Parkway.
Is Vinyl Street one way otherwise?
It's one way from Broadway to Mill.
Right.
And then it goes two ways from Mill to the Parkway.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
We can, I mean, what I'll do is I'll do my homework and I will go door to door, or I'll send a letter and see if this is okay for them, because I hate to do something that the residents don't want, especially on Vinyl Street. We're talking about Vinyl Street to solve a problem on Victoria Street. So what I can do is send a letter and let the residents know that this is happening. And then what we can do is the next meeting, hopefully I could probably do this before the next meeting, and I'll see what the feedback is. And then,
Mr. Chairman, can I have a motion to table then?
Okay, yes, we can table that, and maybe the police can help us out with some enforcement of that illegal turn off the Parkway onto Vinyl.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Chief. And motion to table? Second to table. We'll table this, Councilor McKenna. You can you can canvass the neighborhood and see what their thoughts are.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Number 4, the residents of the following streets request a public hearing to have them added to the 24-hour permit parking list. Rice Ave, Witherby, Bateman, Fowler, Witten, Lancaster, Bickford, Alden, Delano, Chamberlain, Goodwin, Harrington, and Pines Road. Now we are in the midst of doing overnight residential parking in the city. We're putting up the signs. There's permits are being mailed out. Mr. Rose is on this call. He may like to comment on this. Any changes to the permit parking, we've been tabling consistently until we get this overnight parking thing signed and up. Do we have any thoughts on what we want to do with this? To be consistent, we would table it. I see Councilor Powers would like to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to make 2 corrections to that list that you have.
Mm-hmm.
First one is to add Wadsworth.
Okay.
The second one is to eliminate Rice Avenue and leave Rice Avenue exactly as it is, no parking.
Okay,
There is no parking on Rice Avenue.
okay.
And the reason for this petition is, I've talked to many of the residents down there since I've been on the city council. There are a lot of
Counselor, unfortunately, you're frozen up.
be a good way to provide more parking for the people that are actually living down there, homeowners, taxpayers, that we'd be able to issue a permit for the for the resident parking only to people who have a valid registration for a vehicle. Not a vehicle that may be registered in Melrose or Swampscott or New Hampshire or Maine or someplace like that. We would eliminate those vehicles. So that is basically the reason for this petition. We've submitted close to 300 signatures. I believe the people that live in the Point of Pines want this by the fact that they've signed these petitions. A couple of the people from the Beach Association, Gary Ferragamo for one, and has gone around and obtained these signatures. So this isn't something that, is just coming as something I thought up. It's something the people down there really want. And as their representative, I'm speaking in favor of that this evening. I don't know how this would affect the parking regulations with 12 to, this would just would eliminate, you wouldn't even need to put those signs up there, I don't believe, if you had no parking on for residents only.
Okay, and you don't feel as though the overnight parking situation will, that ordinance that we have on the books now and we're putting the signs up is adequate? You'd want 24?
No, I don't. I don't, because we've just experienced this past summer, and as we do every summer, there are people that come down there to enjoy Rice Avenue, the beach, and they don't live there. They live somewhere else. So when Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones comes home in the evening to have his dinner, many times there's a car parked by a non-resident in front of their house, and that eliminates that parking space for them. So I don't think it's fair to the residents down there to have a situation like that continue, and that's my reason for supporting this. And I hope that the commission will support this also. I think it's a step in the right direction. There are also, in another area here, there are also people who come from another city, maybe Lynn or Saugus or somewhere, and they park on one of those side streets, and they walk over and get the bus at the MBTA bus stop there and back at the fire station. So again, that's taking up parking spaces from residents that should have those parking spaces and should have the comfort of being allowed to park in their own neighborhood.
Thank you, Councilor Powers. Mr. Rose, do you have any input?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay, yes. This was a long summer. It was quite a different summer. We went through the COVID-19. The Point of Pines experienced a lot of extra traffic down there that they wouldn't have probably normally had. But where 280, I think 80 odd people signed this petition, I would say that was probably 80%, and John Powers, you can correct me if I'm wrong, 80% of the residents that might have signed this petition. The only thing that I would like for those residents to also know, and if any of them are listening here tonight, is that once we issue those permits, John, the visitor permits, they come with one visitor permit. So in the course of the 24-hour parking, if they have visitors, I know a lot of them have a lot of company, there's only going to be allowed one permit per household. Otherwise than that, I have no issues at this time. I think Joanne Mckenna and other councils in the past had asked us to change some of their streets, and we hadn't done it because of the 24-hour overnight permit parking issues. So, but at this time, if they wanted to move forward with that and go before the public meeting, I'm just going to leave that up to the Traffic Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Any other comments?
That's basically it, Mr. Chairman. Again, it's people down there have been enduring a problem for several years, and I think it's time to correct that problem. And I think the residents down there feel that it is time to correct that problem, and that's what this petition would do. And again, Mr. Rose was 100% right. Probably 80% of the residents down there, the longtime residents that have lived in that area, that have faced this problem for years, they're in favor of this. They signed a petition. And again, the only street that was left out was Wadsworth. And it wasn't left out for any particular reason. It was just an oversight on the people.
And Council, I don't mean to interrupt you. When they signed the petition, did they realize that guests and other family members coming in to visit in the summer won't be able to park there? They'd only get one visitor permit per household. We could move it to a public hearing and, make that clear to the residents. I know, just being the area that it is, it's kind of a attractive place to invite your family members and have and have a barbecue and what have you. If it's 24 hours, they can't park there. So maybe we move this to a public hearing, and if we can make that clear to the residents so they know what they're getting themselves into, as Mr. Rose brought up.
I would have no problem with that. In fact, I would suggest that go to a public hearing, and that stipulation be noted in the information that's sent to the residents down there. It's not a good situation. I mean, I don't think it really prohibits anyone from parking down there that is having a party or a cookout or something like that. Many of those homes down there have driveways. Most of the people down there are neighborly people. They work with their neighbors to try to correct a situation when they're having a graduation or a cookout or something like that. And I think what it this does, definitely, no question in my mind, will create parking spaces down there. Many times I've gone down there on a complaint and I've seen 3 or 4 vans parked in front of a house or around the neighborhood from Charlie's dry cleaner or Bob's electrical service or something like that. And they clearly don't belong there. I mean, these are take-home vehicles. So if you work for a company and you're taking home a vehicle and it's not registered in the city, shame on us, because we're also losing the excise tax on that also. Vehicles that are not registered in the city. And we should be getting that. So again, I would support moving this to a public hearing. I think it's the right thing to do.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, Frank Stringy, I understand the intent of this, and I agree with the intent, but there are other ramifications and provisions that would have to be made for healthcare workers, maintenance workers, people that have work done on their house. I, for one, own a home there. I visit there quite a bit, and I'm doing work on my house. Provisions for homeowners that are not residents of the Pines. Provisions for healthcare workers. It has to be looked at, and we have to make amendments to allow those people to be able to park down there on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. So what are you suggesting? And just to the commission, just a reminder that we have been tabling all these, until we get the overnight parking in. So if you'd like to move it to a public hearing, we can certainly do that.
Well, historically, we've been doing that. We've been tabling these until we get the overnight parking in there and enforced, and see
Right.
how that impacts the neighborhood and whether it resolves some of the issues that these residents are having without a towners parking there.
Okay. All right.
That's a good point, but I just don't want to see the city going through the expense of adding a duplicate set or another set of signs once we put up signs for the overnight parking. That's just another expense.
Okay. So do I hear any kind of a motion, one way or another, move to a public hearing, table it until we,
Mr. Chairman?
yes,
This
Mr.
is
Wright.
Nick Rystrom. Remaining consistent with how we have handled some of these, in the recent past, I would make a motion to table this,
Second that.
in lieu of, the parking program rolling out in the next, 30 days,
Mhm.
similar to how we had before.
Okay. Is that a motion?
Yes, it is.
Motion to table. Do I have a second?
I second that. Table it.
Okay, we're going to table this until we have the overnight parking up and running, because we do have to examine the permit parking throughout the city, especially in Ward 2, who has like 4 or 5 different versions on every street. So the idea of this is to become consistent across the city. So the people that are enforcing have a little leeway as to what they're doing. All right, so thanks. We've tabled that, and we can bring that up at a future meeting. The request number 5, the Point of Pines Yacht Club is requesting a public hearing to allow members to park along their property when their lot is full. So I know Rice Ave, there's no parking on that, both sides right now. So this request would exempt the people using the Point of Pines Yacht Club from that parking restriction.
Mr. Chairman, just have a question. How would you differentiate between members and people that just wanted to park there that live down the street?
I don't think you would.
Well,
I think there's difficulty in implementing something like that.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Agenzio, I think in conversation I've had with those people over there, they would give them some type of placard or some type of thing that would identify them as being at the yacht club, that they could either hang on their mirror or put it on their dashboard.
Okay. All right, that's an interesting one. We would be allowing the Point of Pines Yacht Club members, and it could be people that aren't even residents, exempt from the no parking rules on Rice Ave. It's a little.
Mr. Agenzio?
Yes.
It's only an issue a few weekends out of the summer.
Okay.
And this year too, I think with the COVID-19,
okay,
there was a lot of people that were utilizing the yacht club and a lot of people down there at the same time. And I only saw it jammed up a few times. And one of it was over the holiday weekend for 4th of July and other days where it was exceptionally hot. But for the most part, there might have been a couple of cars there and it really did not cause any interruption with the traffic or anything like that.
Okay, well, this is a request to move to a public hearing. We could certainly do that.
Yes.
And see what shakes loose.
Yes, could we do that, Mr. Chairman?
Motion to move to a public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, do I hear a second?
To move it to a public hearing.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second, Chief Bright.
Okay, second. Okay, we'll move that to a public hearing at our next scheduled meeting. Number 6, request to amend Schedule 8 of Title 10, parking restrictions generally by adding Ford Street, the westerly direction off from Revere Street, 60 feet northerly for 2-hour parking. I believe this is along the Turkish Cultural Center. And I believe this is in response to a business at the corner of North Shore Road and Revere Street that really doesn't have any parking. Do I have any thoughts on this? Anyone wishing to speak to move this to a public hearing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd be a proponent for that.
Okay.
You know, because it would help them over at the Turkish Cultural Center and as well at the business at the corner of Revere Street and North Shore Road.
Okay, so it'll just be for those, maybe it's 60 feet, so that's, 4 spots.
Yeah,
And
3 or 4 spots, yes.
And it's not in front of any resident home.
20 feet, 20 feet.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, would this, so 2-hour parking, would it be just during the day, or is it a 24-hour situation?
Well, according to this, it's 2-hour parking. This would read 24 hours. I mean, if you just wanted to have it during business hours, you could do that. The request before us is for 2-hour parking. We could, we could amend that during the public hearing.
Mr. Genzio?
Yes.
Could we do that like Monday through Friday?
Yep.
Would that be possible, something like that?
Yeah, Monday through Friday during business hours, 8 in the morning till 5 at night, maybe.
Yeah.
I imagine during the public hearing, maybe the business owners would speak on that, and then we could tweak that during the public hearing. All right. Do I have a motion to move this to a public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, do we have a sense of what type of business? The reason I'm asking is maybe, is it a business that operates, after 5 p.m. or?
Well, I believe the business owner would come, hopefully, and support their request at the public hearing, and
Right.
They could give us their business hours, and we could, if we're inclined, we could do what we could for them.
Okay.
All right. So we'll move it to a public hearing, and we can tweak it then.
Yes,
Okay.
if you would, Mr. Chairman.
That sounds acceptable. Move that to a public hearing. And number 7 on the list here, amend Schedule 11 of Title 10 handicap person parking by adding 20 Harmon, 22 Burnett Road, 202 Constitution Ave, and 560 Revere Street on the corner of Bay Road. A motion to move these to a public hearing.
I have one thing that I'd like to ask on one of these.
Sure.
Mr. Genzio. On 20 Harmon Street, I had emailed all the members of the Traffic Commission. This one is a special circumstance. I'm sure if everybody has seen the email, they see what the circumstances is. The applicant had a very serious injury, and they're in the process of redesigning their home, and they are going to be losing their driveway. There has to be a ramp being put into the driveway to go to the back of the home because it's a condo association, and they can't make an opening in the front of the home. So there's going to be a large ramp taking up the driveway, and for mobility issues, they have to have a vehicle with a ramp, a van with a ramp. So they're no longer going to have the driveway.
Okay.
And it's an emergency basis. He's going to be coming home, and they have nowhere to park this vehicle.
Okay.
So I sent all the paperwork to everyone.
Yep.
If you have any questions, and I wanted to see if we could forego the process for the month on it. We'll do the formality still on it because I believe that the gentleman is coming home on the 17th, and there's nowhere to park this vehicle.
Okay. So on an emergency basis, we'll erect a HP sign at 20 Harmon. We'll still move it to a public hearing with the rest of them. Do I hear a motion?
So moved, Chief Bright.
Okay, thank you. Second?
Second that, Frank Stringy.
Okay,
I'll put it into the system.
okay, great.
Thank you.
Number 8 is request to amend Schedule 9 of Title 10 isolated stop signs by adding Arcadia Street at Oak Island Street. Move that to a public hearing?
We'll move.
Are we talking about if you're heading north on Arcadia?
If you're heading north on Arcadia as you intersect with Oak Island Street.
There's no stop sign there right now?
It seems like there should be, but
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
So
I would make a motion to move that to a public hearing.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Number 9, the mayor requests the Traffic Commission to contact Mass DOT relative to accepting and enforcing the city's no trucks ordinance on Winthrop Avenue.
Mr. Chairman, can I talk about this, please?
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you very much. Winthrop Ave and Crescent Ave was approved to have no trucks because they're cut-throughs to Winthrop. We have a no sign about a block from Beachmont Square that says all trucks turn here.
Okay.
We have 2 signs on Winthrop Ave and Crescent Ave that says no trucks.
Okay.
What's been happening is we've had 16-wheeler gas tankers and other 16-wheelers come up Winthrop Ave and Crescent Ave. They're taking down the branches of the trees. The trees are falling on cars. They're not obeying the signs. And I think this is just the city ordinance, but we're trying to get Mass DOT to accept the enforcement of this also, to put it on the books. So I'm just trying to get more enforcement up there because the trucks are speeding up the street, taking the branches down, hitting the trees. It's outrageous. And they're gas tankers. Some of them are gas tankers, 16-wheeler gas tankers. So
Okay.
if there was anything, that could happen there, we'd have a serious problem. So.
Okay, Sergeant Janino, does this have to be, no trucking has to be accepted by Mass DOT even on city roads, is that correct?
We have to, the traffic commission votes on it, and once we vote on it, it goes back to the mayor's office again. The mayor's office in turn writes a letter to Mass Highway, Mass DOT to accept it on their end.
Okay.
I just want to say that this was approved 2 years ago by the Traffic Commission to put the signs up.
Okay, so it doesn't seem like we need to go to a public hearing. Do you want to just move this forward?
Yes, I would love that. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So as far as Mass DOT is concerned, are we trying to ask them to enforce turns from Bennington Street, or how does DOT have enforcement on Winthrop Ave?
I know they have to approve any no heavy trucking sign. I don't know who actually the enforcing authority is.
Wouldn't that be local police?
We enforce.
You enforce.
Yeah.
The local.
We need the approval of Mass DOT. They're gonna want a alternate route.
Okay.
For the trucks to go around, and they accept the route, and they'll either accept it or deny the truck route for us. Once they accept it, then we can enforce it.
Okay. When you do
so
that,
we're talking about just Winthrop Ave from Bennington to Winthrop Parkway, correct?
It goes, so there are businesses on Winthrop Ave, just the first half of Winthrop Ave from Beachmont Square to say when you enter Crescent Ave. And those are where, and they put an island for those trucks to go around and go back to Bennington Street. Yeah,
Okay,
they can't come up Winthrop Ave. So, but
what
they are.
Right. I think what Mr. Reisman is getting at, Winthrop Ave goes all the way to Broadway. This isn't affecting the Broadway end of this thing.
No, it's just Beachmont, yes.
Beachmont end of it.
But it's only affecting from where Crescent Ave and Winthrop Ave come together, from there towards the beach.
Right.
Yes.
That's
yes.
Sergeant Janino, do you have a thought on a alternate route that would be acceptable to Mass DOT?
Does the Parkway allow trucks to Winthrop Parkway? We know offhand?
Yes, they do.
So
That's where they're supposed to come down.
I know when we did the sand from the beach down there, they weren't allowed to use Winthrop Avenue because of the hill with the loaded trucks, and they made them go around, down and around the long way to get out of there. So
Okay, Sergeant, maybe if you just want to confirm with Mass DOT that that is a acceptable alternate route. That seems feasible.
We'll give them a call.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you. Number 10, the mayor requests the Traffic Commission to install a crosswalk and stop signs on Harris Street at the intersection of Butler. We did recently install a crosswalk. Do you want to move the stop sign request to a public hearing. So on Harris Street, I know historically there's been complaints of speeding from Beach Street down to the Parkway. I believe we have a stop sign at Harris and Eustis, and we have a stop sign at Harris and Sewell, both stopping traffic on Butler. Stopping traffic going down Harris. Would we want to add an additional stop at Butler? Any thoughts on that?
So, Mr. Chairman, that would now become a four-way stop, correct?
Yes, correct.
Whereas it's only stop signs on Butler currently?
That's correct. Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Would you like to move that to a public hearing? Anyone?
Motion to move to a public hearing, Chief Bright.
Okay. Second?
Seconded, Nick Rystrom.
Thank you. We'll move that to a public hearing. And now we have two late communications. The first one is from Councilor Novoselsky. He requests to amend Schedule 8 of Title 10 by adding Walnut Avenue westerly from Kimball Ave to the dead end, no parking anytime. So no parking on the west side of Walnut from Kimball to the dead end. I believe they're doing some work down there, improvements to that dead end. They're trying to make it look more pedestrian friendly to, come down from Shirley Ave and Beach Street and go into the mall. They're using that as an entrance to the mall area there. And they're making improvements. They put in new sidewalks, and I think that's what's driving this.
You're gonna pull the second one off of there.
Chief Bright, motion to amend.
Okay, we'll move that to a public hearing. Second.
Second that.
Okay. And number 2, Councilor Janino requests to amend Schedule 11 of Title 10 by adding an HP sign at 25 Norman Street. Would you like to move that to a public hearing?
So moved, Chief Bright.
Okay.
Second?
This is the one that we keep bringing up.
Mr. Chairman, can we have Mr. DeChico's input on this?
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Is this the same one that we keep bringing up and denying?
This has come up several times. I know that the
Yes.
woman
We
there.
did deny this the last meeting that we had.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. I don't know if circumstances have changed. I mean, I don't, it's possible circumstances changed. I don't know. We could iron that out at the public hearing, or, I don't know why it would come up again. Like I
Mr.
said.
Genzio,
Yes,
could we table this?
table it, sure. That's a request to table.
Mr. Lewis, yes.
Okay. All right, the second to the table.
Second.
Okay, so this request has been tabled for now. All right, thank you very much. Sergeant Janino, when do you anticipate our next meeting?
Go to the calendar.
Okay,
He has to look at the calendar, Mr. Genzio. I'm not sure if you heard him.
thank you, Chief.
While he does that, Mr. Agenzio, can I have a moment of personal privilege just for an announcement for the city?
Of
I
course.
just wanted to remind people, if they have not filled out their city census 2020, if they could please fill it out. The deadline is September 30th. It is of great help for the city. It's gives $2,400 per person that fills it out. We are a little bit behind the counts from the last census 10 years ago.
Okay.
And it is very safe to fill it out, and there is no repercussions for anyone to fill it out. So we would appreciate everyone to fill out a census 2020.
Okay.
It just benefits a lot of the programs in the city of Revere.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Mr. DeChico.
Mr. Genzio,
Yes,
how does October 29th work for the next meeting?
that's Thursday, October 29th. That sounds good. Okay,
Okay.
so we'll motion to adjourn till the 29th of October.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
See you. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Good night.
Ralph, see ya.
See you guys.